A man was walking with a woman when he spots the maid, so he starts kissing her. The woman then says the man was an idiot and leaves after she leaves. The man tells the maid to get back to work and then leaves. The maid, then, does not understand what had happened in that place. Later, the maid enters a room and then spots the woman. She then slowly enters the room and then the woman greets her. The woman then says that the maid didn't know her yet and then the maid says no. The woman then says that although they didn't know each other yet, they had met that morning. The woman then says that she had a question for the maid and asks what relationship she had with the man. She then says that she had known the man for a long time and that even then, he had never said anything about her before. She then asks what they had and then, the maid would tell her, but at that moment, the man arrives and then kisses the maid on the cheek. He then asks what the woman was talking about with the maid and then the woman asks, what is the relationship between the two? He says that she was his girlfriend and this leaves the woman very surprised. The woman then says that he couldn't do that, because that woman, she is the company's employee and that she worked in cleaning. He then asked what would be the problem with him dating the maid and then the woman said she wasn't woman enough for him. She says that she was woman enough for the man and so this takes the maid by surprise. The woman then says that she was the man's ex-wife and says that the maid didn't know that yet. The man then asks her to calm down and says that he would explain things to her so that she can finally understand. The man then says that, although he was dating the woman, she would start at the company working in the cleaning part. He says that dating the employee did not mean that he would put her in the highest position within the company, as she would earn her position in that company with her own effort. The woman then says that she doubted that, because the employee did not have any kind of education, but the man says that she was very capable of achieving a high position in the company. The woman says that she would soon be fired, but he says that would not happen. She then says that she wouldn't mind that, as she also has a new boyfriend. She says that, in fact, she was already engaged and that she was going to marry him soon. She then says that she wanted to arrange a day so that the man could meet her fiancé and that they could get something to eat together. The man then says that he was going to meet his ex-wife and that his girlfriend was also going to be there. The woman then says that she didn't want his girlfriend to go, but the man said that she was his girlfriend and had a right to be there. The woman then agrees with that and says they were going to eat something together and then the maid agrees with that and says she was looking forward to it. The woman then says that she would see if the maid had the nerve to show up on a date where she was not wanted. The man says she was overreacting with that, then says they were looking forward to the date. The woman then tells him that he should remember that he was her ex-husband and that she should behave as such. At that moment, the man asks if she could leave the room. She says she wouldn't go out as she was working, but the man asks her to leave as he wanted to talk to his girlfriend alone. She then gets mad at that and leaves the room. At that point, the man apologizes to the maid and says he didn't mean to do that to her. She then asks what was going on there and the man says that he had made up that story so that his ex-wife would think that he was also in a relationship, since she was with a new fiancé and he didn't want to let her think that he was alone. He said that the relationship he had with his ex-wife was very complicated and that, because of that, he ended up making up that story. The maid then asks if he hired her because of that, but he says no and that he just made it up, because he didn't know what to do. She then asks if the man was using her to solve his problems, but he says he wouldn't and apologizes again to her. He then asks for the help of the maid and says that he really needed her help. She then agrees and says that she could help him but that she wanted some change. He then thinks about what he could give her in return and asks what she wanted. She then said that she wanted a lot of things, but that at that moment she wanted him to give her a promotion. He said he couldn't do that, as she would need to be qualified to be promoted and at least have worked in that role before. He asks if she already had those things, but she says no. However, since the man was wanting her help, he would have to help her too and he could teach her what he knew. He then says that the situation was complicated, then the maid says that the man would not help her, so she would not help him either. He then asks her to wait and says that he would talk to the company's shareholders and that he would try to get her a promotion. She then asks if he really was telling the truth and he promises her that he would try to get her approval. She then said that she would help him but that she didn't have the clothes to go to an event like that. He says it wasn't a problem, as she could quit her job right then, go shopping for clothes, but she said he didn't understand what she was saying. She says the man should have known that she wasn't paid enough to buy that kind of clothing. The man then realizes that she was telling the truth and then says that he would help her. Go take some bills from his jacket. He then starts counting the money and gives her a large amount and says that she should buy clothes with that money and that later he would meet her at the end of the day. She then takes the money and is very happy about it and says that she would meet him later. This leaves the man relieved. Later, the man was inside the elevator when he takes out his phone and calls the maid. He then asks if she was ready yet, and when he gets a response from her he says he would be waiting for her in the parking lot. He then says goodbye to her and hangs up the phone. In the parking lot, he meets and then the man says that she looked very beautiful in those clothes. She then says that she liked the clothes more than that shoe, it was very uncomfortable. He then starts laughing and says she was really funny. At that moment, the man says that they needed to get to know each other a little better, as he didn't want to arrive on the date and end up realizing that he didn't know anything about the maid. She is a little surprised by that, and then the man says that it was just so they can speed up their dating story, as he didn't know anything about the maid and that he needed to know a few things about her. She then says that she didn't have much to say about her life and then starts to tell her story. She says that her father had died, but that in fact she didn't know if he really died, because one day he left home and never came back. She then says that she stayed with her mother, but that she had a boyfriend that she didn't like and that, because of that, she ended up leaving home. She said that after that, she ended up going to an orphanage and that after some time, her aunt decided to try to rescue her and that after that she moved in with her. She said that it was not a good experience, because her aunt also had a boyfriend that she didn't like and that this boyfriend ended up abusing her and that she then decided to leave her aunt's house. She said that this was her story there, that although she didn't achieve much, she worked hard to get where she was and that she wanted to achieve much more. The man then says that her story was very sad and that she could no longer believe that their stories were very similar. She said that was a lie, as the man must have been born very rich, but he said that was not true, as he had to work a lot to get where he is. He says that his parents had died when he was a child and that he had to live on the streets. He says he even ate junk food to survive, but that he worked really hard to get where he was and that he was proud of it. He says that, because of all the money he had, it was very difficult to find someone to stay with him, because even his ex-wife was a gold digger who was only with him because of his money. He says that, in addition to everything else, his friends were also gold diggers and that they were only with him when he paid them something, but they were never by his side when he needed advice or just a hug. He said it was very difficult to find anyone who wanted to be with him for what he was, not the money he had. He says it might not look like it anymore. He had a good heart and people always tried to take advantage of him, then thought he was a person who could be taken advantage of. He then says that that was his story. The woman then says that he had already talked a lot about his life and that it was great to know more about his story. She then asks if they could go and he says yes. He says that on the way they could talk more to get to know each other better. And then they leave. At the restaurant, the woman was with her fiancé and then they arrive. They then sit at the table together with the two, and then the woman says that the maid really had gone to the meeting. The maid then says that she needed to support her boyfriend and so the woman was not happy about that. The woman then tells her fiancé to greet the two, so they greet the groom and then apologizes to them and says that he needed to resolve an urgent work matter and that soon they could talk. The woman then says that her fiancé was like that, because he was very busy and that he was always in a meeting. She said that when she finished a single groom meeting, she started another one. The man then asks if the woman had already ordered something to eat, and she says she ordered a pizza. They say that was a good idea. Then the woman said that she could share it with them. The woman then asks her fiancé to get off the phone for a while so they can talk, but the fiancé says he had an urgent matter to attend to. At this point he says someone was calling and he had to take it, and then he leaves the table. He then starts talking to the person on the phone and says that he needed those documents right then. At this point, the woman walks up to him and tells him to get off the phone and talk to them. The groom said he couldn't do that, as he needed to resolve an important matter at work, but the woman says they were going out together and he needed to talk to them. The groom then says that he had said that he couldn't go that day, but that she had insisted on it. She then says that she had said that they would go on the date together, and then the groom asks her to lower her voice. She then asks him to hang up the phone and talk to them, but he asks her to keep her voice down. She then asks him to turn off the phone and talk to them, and then the groom tells whoever was talking on the phone that he would be at work soon. She then tells him to sit down, and then the two start watching them, not knowing what to say about that. The maid then asks if that was the woman's boyfriend, and then she said that that was her fiancé. The woman then says that she was surprised that the maid came to the meeting, but she said that she already said that she would support her boyfriend in that. The man then says that where he would go, she would go with him. At that moment, the woman tells her fiancé that he should stop messing with the phone and pay attention to her, because she needed to pay attention to him at that moment. He then says that he couldn't do that, because he needed to resolve an important matter. He then apologizes to the man and says that he wasn't kidding there, because that matter was serious. She then asks if he would spend the whole day taking care of work matters, and then he starts screaming saying yes. This makes both of them very uncomfortable, and then the groom goes on to say that he was tired of it. He then says that she always did that and that everything had to be at the time she wanted, but that things weren't like that. He says that her work was very important to him, as it was where he made his living, but that the woman did not understand that and that he was already tired of it. He then gets up and says he didn't want to be around her anymore, and then he apologizes to both of them but says he couldn't be around her anymore as she was unbearable. At this point, the maid says that they could leave if the woman doesn't mind, but the woman says that she doesn't need to stay there, but that she wants to talk to the man and then she can leave. The man then says that if she left, he would too. At this point, the woman starts to say that she needs to talk to the man and then says that she needs to get their relationship back together. The man says she was going crazy as he would never get back together with her. He says that there was nothing between them anymore, but the woman says that they had created a beautiful story together and that story still existed. She says that story couldn't end so easily and that they should get back together. The man then says that the story they had created together was the one that the woman had never valued him, because she was just a gold digger. The woman asks him not to talk to her that way, but he says that she was always a gold digger and that she never appreciated him. She then said that she had changed and now she wanted to start a new story with him. She then said that she had no reason for the man to be with that maid. The man then says that she had never changed and that she was still the same gold digger as ever. At this point, the maid says they needed to leave and the man agrees. They then leave and the woman says that she was very angry about what happened there. Outside, the maid starts laughing and says that it was a very strange situation. The man then agrees and says that he was glad to be rid of that woman in his life. He then tells the maid that after everything that had happened between them, he was starting to like her a lot. She then asks what he was talking about, and then the man says that he didn't know exactly what he was feeling and that he wanted to know if she could give it a chance so they could get to know each other better. He asks her what she thought about it, whereupon the maid says she thought it was a good idea. He is then very happy about it and the maid says that she had really enjoyed spending time with him too. This makes him very happy and so he kisses the maid.